Trudeau revokes emergency powers after Canada blockades end. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is removing emergency powers police can use after authorities ended blockades and at the borders and occupation in Ottawa by truckers and others opposed to COVID-19 restrictions. Toronto, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced Wednesday he is removing emergency powers police can use after authorities ended the blockades at the borders and the occupation in Ottawa by truckers and others opposed to COVID-19 restrictions. Trudeau said the threat continues, but the acute emergency that included entrenched occupations has ended. His government invoked the powers last weekend. Lawmakers affirmed the powers late Monday. The situation is no longer an emergency, therefore the federal government will be ending the use of the Emergencies Act, Trudeau said. We are confident that existing laws and bylaws are sufficient. The Emergencies Act allows authorities to declare certain areas as no-go zones. It also allows police to freeze truckers' personal and corporate bank accounts in compel truck companies to haul away vehicles. The trucker protest grew until it closed a handful of Canada-US border posts and shut down key parts of the capital for more than 3 weeks. But all border blockades have now ended and the streets around the Canadian Parliament are quiet. We were very clear that the use of the Emergencies Act would be limited in time, Trudeau said. Trudeau had warned earlier this week there were some truckers just outside Ottawa who might be planning further blockades or occupations. His public safety minister also said there was an attempt to block a border crossing in British Columbia over the weekend. The protests, which were first aimed at a COVID-19 vaccine mandate for cross-border truckers but also encompassed fury over the range of COVID-19 restrictions and hatred of Trudeau, reflected the spread of disinformation in Canada and simmering populist and right-wing anger. The self-styled Freedom Convoy shook Canada's reputation for civility, inspired convoys in France, New Zealand and the Netherlands and interrupted trade, causing economic damage on both sides of the border. Hundreds of trucks eventually occupied the streets around Parliament, a display that was part protest and part carnival. For almost a week the busiest US-Canada border crossing, the Ambassador Bridge between Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, was blocked. The crossing sees more than 25% of the trade between the two countries. Authorities moved to reopen the border posts, but police in Ottawa did little but issue warnings until Friday, even as hundreds and sometimes thousands of protesters clogged the streets of the city and besieged Parliament Hill. On Friday, authorities launched the largest police operation in Canadian history, arresting a string of Ottawa protesters and increasing that pressure on Saturday until the streets in front of Parliament were clear. Eventually, police arrested at least 191 people and towed away 79 vehicles. Many protesters retreated as the pressure increased. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police said those who had their bank accounts frozen were influencers in the illegal protest in Ottawa, and owners and/or drivers of vehicles who did not want to leave the area. The province of Ontario also announced it is ending its state of emergency but said the emergency tools provided to law enforcement will be maintained at this time as police continue to address ongoing activity on the ground. Those who block critical infrastructure face up to a year in prison and a maximum fine of $100,000. A small convoy of truckers demanding an end to coronavirus mandates began a cross-country drive from California to the Washington, D.C. area on Wednesday. Several hundred people rallied in a parking lot in the cold, windswept Mojave Desert town of Adelanto before about 24 trucks and a number of other vehicles hit the road. It wasn't clear how many intended to go all the way. The Pentagon has approved the deployment of 700 unarmed National Guard troops to the nation's capital as it prepares for multiple trucker convoys. The troops would be used to assist with traffic control during demonstrations expected in the city in the coming days, the Pentagon said.